Now let me tell you something, ladies. You know that moment when your phone lights up and it's his name on the screen. The same man who went ghost on you, the same man who left you in the dark, the same man who acted like you didn't even exist for days, weeks, maybe months. And now, out of nowhere, here he comes, sliding back into your life like nothing happened. First thing you got to understand is this: silence is an answer. When somebody goes quiet on you, when they choose not to call, not to text, not to check in, that is them telling you exactly where you stood in that moment. And baby, if you didn't matter enough for them to keep that communication alive back then, you got to ask yourself, why should I be so quick to open the door now? Now, I ain't saying you got to cuss him out. I'm not saying you got to be mean or bitter. But you better have a backbone. You better know your worth. Because here's the truth: the way you respond now will teach him how he can treat you from this day forward. See, when a man disappears and then comes back, there's usually a reason. Either he's bored, he's lonely, or what he thought was better out there didn't work out. Don't get it twisted. He didn't suddenly have an epiphany about how amazing you are. Most of the time, he just realized the grass wasn't greener, and now he's trying to water the lawn he left behind. So here's what you do. You slow down. You don't jump to reply the second you see his message. You don't go running back like a door was never closed. Take your time. Let him feel the gap that he created. And when you do respond, it's short. Keep it calm. Keep it confident. No paragraphs, no essays, no explanations. If you decide you even want to entertain the conversation, make him earn his way back into your life. Let him prove with actions, not just words, that this time is different. Because any man can type, "I miss you," or "Hey, stranger." That don't mean he's ready to show up for you consistently. And if you don't want him back, that's fine too. You have every right to say, "I've moved on," or simply not respond at all. Silence can be a powerful answer too. Bottom line, when he reaches out after silence, you hold the power. You set the tone. You decide if his reappearance is just a temporary ripple or if it's the beginning of something real. But whatever you do, don't let his return make you forget the pain his absence caused. Silence is already an answer. Remember how he treated you when he was gone, because in that quiet, in that space where his voice and presence were missing, you learned something about his priorities and about where you fit in his life, even if he never said it out loud. And that is one of the most important lessons you can carry with you into any future interaction with him. Because when someone chooses not to call, not to text, not to check in, and they are communicating through their absence, and that message is often louder than any words they could have spoken, it tells you that in those moments, they either didn't think about you, didn't value you enough to reach out, or were simply prioritizing something or someone else. And when you truly understand that, you realize that silence is not neutral. It is a decision, a choice, and choices reveal character. Now it's easy to try to rationalize it away, to tell yourself maybe he was busy, maybe he was stressed, maybe he was going through something. And while life happens, someone who truly cares will find a way to at least let you know they are still there. So the fact that he didn't mean something, and you can't just sweep that under the rug when he suddenly reappears, because if you do, you're telling him that his disappearing act has no consequences, and people rarely change behavior that goes unchecked. So if you remember how he treated you during that silence, you won't be so quick to just welcome him back without thinking, because that time apart revealed his willingness to let you go, even if temporarily. And you deserve someone who fights to keep you, not someone who walks away and expects you to still be waiting. And here's the truth: when you start seeing silence as an answer, you stop chasing after people who don't choose you. You stop begging for their attention, and you stop letting them play on your emotions like you're on standby, because silence will tell you if you were truly a priority or just an option. And if you were an option then, you'll likely be an option now unless something significant has changed. So the next time he reaches out after a long period of no communication, instead of getting caught up in the excitement or relief of hearing from him, take a step back and ask yourself, how did his silence make me feel? What did I go through emotionally when he was gone? And do I want to risk going through that again? Because the truth is, those feelings matter, and pretending they didn't happen just to have him back in your life will only set you up for a repeat of the same cycle. You have to remember the loneliness, the confusion, the questions you asked yourself, because that's the real impact of silence. And if you can hold on to that awareness, you'll respond with clarity instead of desperation, with strength instead of weakness, and with boundaries instead of blind hope. Take your time to respond. Don't jump at the first message, because the moment that notification pops up and you see his name, your emotions might want to take over, your heart might race, your mind might flood with memories, and you might feel the urge to instantly type back just to satisfy that curiosity or to ease that emotional pull. But the truth is, the speed of your reply sends a message, and if you respond too quickly, you may unintentionally communicate that you've been waiting, that you're too available, that you haven't moved on from whatever happened before. So slowing down is not about playing games. It's about protecting your emotional space and giving yourself the time to think clearly. Because when you take that pause, you allow yourself to process when he's reaching out, what you actually want, and whether it's worth opening that door again. And in that pause, you also remove the pressure to give an immediate answer, because if he could go days, weeks, or months without talking to you, then you are under no obligation to give him a response within minutes or even hours. Your time is valuable, and your attention is valuable, and taking your time reminds both you and him that not everyone gets instant access to you. It's about rebalancing the power dynamic so that his reappearance doesn't automatically put him in control of the conversation. Because when you wait, you're also watching how he follows up. Does he send another message? Does he try to genuinely reconnect? Or does he just throw out a one-word text and disappear again? This pause gives you information about his intentions, and it also helps you approach the situation from a place of logic instead of impulse, because emotions can cloud judgment, especially when you've been hoping to hear from someone. But if you give yourself time, those initial feelings settle, and you can evaluate more honestly whether you even want to respond at all. And during that time, you can reflect on the past, consider how his silence affected you, and decide if his return aligns with your standards and boundaries. Because if you respond too quickly without thinking, you might fall right back into the same cycle you worked hard to break free from. So taking your time is also a form of self-respect. It's you saying to yourself, I am in control of when and how I engage. And it's also a way of setting the tone for any future interactions, because once he sees you're not just waiting by the phone, it forces him to realize that access to you is earned, not assumed, and that shift can change the whole way he approaches you moving forward. It's about making sure your next move is intentional, not emotional, because the first response you give sets stage for what comes next, and if that first response is rushed, it can undo all the distance and growth you've had while he was silent and keep replies short, calm, and confident. No emotional dumping, because the way you answer that first message sets the tone for the entire exchange. If you go in with long paragraphs, explanations, or emotional outpouring, you risk giving away too much power and showing that you've been holding on to unresolved feelings. And that can make it easy for him to slip back into your life with truly addressing the silence or the hurt it caused. When you keep your reply short, you create mystery, you make him wonder what's on your mind, and you signal that you're not desperate for his attention. A measured response shows that you're not overly invested in jumping back into old patterns. Calmness in your tone is also key, because if you come across defensive, bitter, or overly emotional, he can either use that against you or dismiss your feelings entirely. But when you remain composed, you maintain control of the situation. Confidence in your reply tells him that you've been fine without him, that your life has been moving forward, and that his absence didn't leave you not broken or dependent on his return, and that message is often more powerful than anything you could spell out in words. Short responses also give you the advantage of not over-committing to a conversation you not even want to continue. They leave you space to observe how he follows up, and whether his intentions are genuine or superficial. When you avoid emotional dumping, you also protect your heart from reopening wounds that may not have healed yet, because the moment you start unloading all your pain and questions in one go, you make the conversation about proving your worth or demanding answers he may even be ready to give, and that can quickly spiral into frustration or disappointment. By keeping it short and confident, you're essentially saying, acknowledge your message, but my peace comes first, and you're allowing him to take the next step if he's serious. This approach also prevents you from giving him the emotional validation he might be seeking without offering any real change or commitment in return, because sometimes a person reaches out just to see if the door is still open. And if you respond with too much warmth or vulnerability right away, you confirm that it is. But when you keep things minimal, you make him work for that access, you also show that you have self-control and boundaries, which can shift the power dynamic in your favor. Calm, short, confident replies are not about being cold or playing games. They're about protecting your emotional energy while also letting your actions communicate that you respect yourself too much to just dive back into deep conversations without trust being rebuilt. This restraint keeps you from giving him everything he wants without him putting in the effort to earn it. It make him earn his way back with consistent actions, not just words. Because anyone type out a sweet message, say the right things, or give you the exact phrases they know will tug at your emotions. But words are cheap when there's no behavior to back them up. When someone has been silent for a long time and suddenly reappears, the easiest thing they can do is tell you what you want to hear. And if you let that be enough, you open the door for the same disappearing act to happen again. Instead, you have to focus on whether he is willing to show through repeated, intentional actions that he is serious about being in your life. This means looking at patterns, not moments, because one nice gesture or one good conversation doesn't mean the past is erased. You need to see if he follows through on what he says, if he shows up when he says he will, if he stays consistent beyond the first wave of effort. Because someone who is truly committed will make their presence known regularly without you having to chase or remind them. Making him earn his way back also protects you from falling into the trap of nostalgia, where you remember the good moments and forget the bad. Because when you set a standard that his actions have to match his words over time, you stay grounded in reality instead of getting swept away by temporary charm. This also means not rushing the process, because rebuilding trust takes time. And the person who left has to understand that they don't just get instant access to the same place in your heart they once held. They have to work for it. They have to prove that they're not just here out of boredom, loneliness, or convenience. And the only way to prove that is through effort that lasts beyond the first few days or weeks. Consistent actions look like keeping promises, initiating conversations, making plans and following through, showing genuine interest in your life, and respecting your boundaries. It's not grand romantic gestures for a short burst of time. It's the day-to-day reliability that shows he values your presence. And if he can't or won't provide that, then his words mean nothing. When you demand consistency, you also give yourself the gift of clarity, because a man who truly wants to be with you will have no problem putting in the effort for as long as it takes, while someone who's only half interested will eventually reveal himself through lack of follow-up. And when that happens, you'll know you made the right choice by not letting words alone pull you back in. The point is to set a bar that requires more than charm or apologies, because if he can't meet that bar, he's not ready to be in your life in a way that's healthy or lasting. Understand why he's reaching out. Loneliness isn't love. Because when someone who's been absent suddenly decides to send that message or make that call, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that it's because they realized your value, missed you deeply, and want to make things right. But more often than not, people reach out for reasons that have nothing to do with genuine love or commitment. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's because the person they were spending time with is no longer around. Sometimes it's because they're going through a rough patch and just want comfort or validation. And sometimes it's simply curiosity to see if you'll still answer. The problem is, if you mistake those temporary emotions for lasting feelings, you can find yourself pulled back into a cycle that doesn't serve you. Loneliness can make people act in ways that mimic affection. They might text sweet words, reminisce about old times, or act as if they suddenly care about your life. But if the root of their contact is just to fill a void or ease their own discomfort, those feelings will fade as soon as their loneliness is replaced by distraction. You have to be able to step back and examine the timing, the context, and their history with you to figure out whether their return is motivated by love or by convenience. Because love is consistent, it shows up even when things are busy or challenging. While loneliness is sporadic and situational, love is about wanting to invest in someone's happiness and growth over the long term. Loneliness is about wanting to escape one's own emptiness for a moment. When you understand this difference, you stop falling for the surface level gestures that come out of nowhere after weeks or months of silence. You start asking yourself the right questions. Why now? What's changed? What am I seeing in their actions that tells me this is genuine? And if you can't answer those questions with clarity, then it's safer to assume their intentions might not be as deep as you'd like to believe. By recognizing that loneliness can disguise itself as care, you protect yourself from giving away your emotional energy to someone who isn't truly ready to offer you what you deserve. And you also give yourself the chance to decide if you want to be part of their life for real or if you're just being used as a temporary fix. Because when someone reaches out from a place of genuine love, Their actions will be steady. They will seek to understand you. They will respect your boundaries. They will want to build trust again without rushing. But when it's only loneliness driving them, their effort will often fade quickly. So learning to spot the difference keeps you from mistaking temporary comfort for a long-term commitment, or your response sets the tone. Hold the power and protect your peace. Because the first thing you say and how you say it will shape the way he approaches you moving forward. If you respond with instant excitement and open arms, you may unintentionally signal that his silence didn't matter and that he can disappear without consequence. But if you respond with thoughtfulness, boundaries, and composure, you show that you value yourself and that access to you is not automatic. The tone you set in that first reply will either make him step up or let him think he can slide back into old patterns. This is why you have to remember that your peace comes first, not the comfort of making him feel welcomed back. Protecting your peace, making sure your emotional state is stable before engaging. It means asking yourself if the conversation will help you or harm you. It means remembering the lessons you learned while he was gone. When you hold the power, you control the pace and depth of the interaction. You decide whether conversation stays surface, level, or goes deeper. You decide if, and when you're ready to meet in person, you decide how much of your emotional world you share. And when you do this, you prevent him from steering the interaction in a way that benefits only him. Setting the tone also shows him that you're not desperate for his attention, you're not clinging to the past, and you're not going to ignore what happened. It puts the responsibility on him to show that he is worthy of being back in your life, and it makes it clear that the way he treated you before will not be accepted again. Protecting your peace also means not letting his sudden reappearance throw you off balance, because sometimes the shock or excitement of hearing from someone again can cause you to forget the boundaries you set for yourself. But if you stay grounded, you can engage without losing your sense of self. The way you carry yourself in those first few interactions will determine whether he sees you as someone he needs to respect or someone he can take for granted. If you set the tone with confidence, patient clarity, you create a dynamic where he has to match your energy instead of dragging you back into a space where you're chasing after his. And this is the key to maintaining control over your emotional well-being, because the tone you set is like a signal. It tells him what's acceptable and what isn't. And once that standard is in place, it's up to him to rise to it or walk away. Either way, you'll have protected yourself and maintained your peace by making sure that his re-entry into your life happens on terms that respect your value